Every day, you and I get bombarded with negative news. And just like our bodies becomes what we eat, our minds become the information that we consume. If you want to stay positive, it's so important that you also listen to stories that inspires you and uplifts you. In this podcast, we interview world-leading experts dedicated to solving the world's most pressing problems. And if you stick around, I promise you will not only be as informed as if you watch the news, you will feel uplifted, inspired, and have more positive energy in your life. Welcome to Great.com Talks with. Hi and welcome. Today Great.com talks with Ellie Lax, who is the founder of thegentlebarn.org. And today we're also talking about Jay Weiner, who is also the founder of gentlebarn.org. So this will be a special double interview episode. And if you haven't heard of the Gentle Barn before, they are an organization that are teaching people kindness and compassion to animals, to each other, and to our planet. And if you're new here into this podcast, definitely press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we're going to learn about everything from how to perform healing work through animals and what is the business side of an organization like the Gentle Barn. So I'm very excited to have one of my first co-interviewees today in Ellie and in Jay. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
So how would you guys describe Gentle Barn to begin with for someone that is not familiar with the work that you do?
The Gentle Barn is a 21-year-old national organization where we rescue animals that have nowhere else to go, and we rehabilitate them with a whole slew of Western and alternative methods. And then when the animals are ready, we partner with them to heal people with the same stories of trauma and connect children to the love and magic of animals.
Wow. I think that's so needed. I think it's so easy to lose connection to animals. Like I live in a city. If I buy meat in a shop, it's like packaged and there's just no connection to the animals anymore.
Yes, that's exactly why we started the Gentle Barn. Jay and I loved animals very much, and we had some trauma in our own childhoods, and it was always animals that healed us and saved us and kind of got us through the challenges of growing up. And we realized that the people around us didn't see animals the same way that we did, because look, we're all living in cities, we're covering Mother Earth with concrete, we're removed from nature, we're removed from animals, and we're removed from our connections to ourselves and those around us. And so the Gentle Barn really isn't an effort to connect people back to nature, to animals, and to ourselves, to slow down and to realize that we're all the same, though we might look different. And so through the interactions with the animals, the stories of the animals, and realizing that animals really are the same as us, though they look different, we can find our way back to nature, to ourselves, and hopefully to becoming a better humanity.
I think the idea you're spreading here is so important, because I think one of the biggest flaws in the human mindset, from my point of view, is that humans are above animals. And that point of view is causing so much of the suffering that is happening in factory farming, climate change. And Jay, I'm curious to ask you questions in a minute, but you really caught my attention with the trauma work. You said the animals helped both you, Ellie, and Jay recover from. So how were the animals helping you guys on your journey, and how are you applying that today in the barn?
Well, we both felt very lonely and isolated. We had some issues going on in both of our homes. And so I was driven to the lakes and woods by my houses to interact with the ducks, my own personal dog, the turtles, all the animals out in nature surrounding my house. Those were my teachers, healers, and friends. And I believe that I'm alive today because of them. And Jay had abuse going on in his household, and it was the horses in the stables nearby and the dogs in the neighborhood nearby that kind of resuscitated him and kept him going.
So I guess the animals then were representing some kind of energy state that was missing for you guys at that point. What do you think? I'll ask Jadis, what do you think those animals evoked in you that otherwise wouldn't happen?
Well, I mean, I was very lonely, so we don't see animals as different. We see animals just like us. And so when you don't have a mother figure or you don't have a father figure that's really looking out for you, you turn to the animals. And I think that that's what they provided for me, if you have access to them. And so, going to the stables, being with the horses, they were very parental to me. They were very nurturing to me. And I could tell that they had taken me on, to care for me more so than the relationship that they had with anyone else.
I can see that, and I get a warm feeling in my stomach when I hear you talk about the connection you were able to have with animals when you couldn't get that from humans. And I think one thing we're learning in this pandemic, because I spoke to quite a few animal welfare organizations, that just having animals and pets around, you see why that is important now. And I think people are feeling more lonely than ever. So speak more about the kind of work you do to, because you want kids and people in general, right, to interact more with the animals. What does that look like?
So we work with agencies. So we work with domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, children and foster agencies, domestic violence shelters. We work with special needs classes and people from the inner city. And so when we're looking at those agencies, there's part of every population that won't respond to traditional therapy. They're too angry, they're too shut down, they don't want to sit on a couch, and they don't want to talk about their feelings or be vulnerable. So if they're not going to talk about their trauma, how are you going to heal them in traditional therapy? So what we do is we connect with the agencies and we ask them to bring their part of the population that is not responding to traditional therapy. And that's where the Gentle Barn comes in. So when they come into the Gentle Barn, instead of trying to get them to talk and them to open up, we just have them interact with the animals and we tell the animals stories. But when we're telling the animals stories, we're really telling their story. We're telling their stories of loneliness. We're telling their stories of abandonment or rejection. We're telling their stories of anger or feeling different. We're telling their stories of hopelessness. And so while we're telling the animal stories, they realize that they're not alone, that there's others that have lived their pain and walked their path. And then they see those others having friends and family and a beautiful life, and it inspires them that they can heal and recover as well and end up okay. And so without getting them to talk, we do the talking, the animals do the loving and nurturing, and then they're practicing different skills next to the animals. So they're practicing leadership skills when they're leading the horses. They're practicing empathy when they're holding smaller animals. They're practicing confidence when they're by the very large animals and they can stand next to them. They're getting unconditional love when the cows hug them. And so they're learning life skills, but not in a lesson teaching way, but in a very natural, organic way next to the animals. And they really find themselves in the barnyard and it changes their lives.
I got goosebumps when you told me about the way you use stories to be able to reach someone when talking about the pain directly might be unbearable. That's beautiful. And
we've had a very powerful success when it comes to the population of children that come in or people that come in from programs that are having such a hard time penetrating or getting in with the children because they just, these kids don't want to sit on a couch and talk. Yeah. They don't understand that. And what would you even talk about? Because these things probably happened to them before they could even be verbal. So, having the opportunity to let the animals do the work just by telling their stories is it's hard for us sometimes because we want to really pull away and step away and let the animals do the work. And a lot of times the people who come with them want to fix them and we just want the animals to help them and soothe them. So that's kind of a beautiful process to watch where these animals step in and just really take over and nurture them. It's beautiful.
It got to be a release as well for the children that no one is trying to fix them, at least at this very point. I assume that maybe their therapists, parents, teachers all view them as a problem. So the animal's non-judgmental state must feel very refreshing for them. And I assume as well then that there you create a community kind of feeling amongst the children as well that are here together, that they see that other people are going through similar things.
Yeah, and that's actually really, really important when we're dealing with, we deal with a lot of teenagers in gangs or recovering from drug abuse, and they have a very tough exterior. They won't look at you. They walk around with their arms folded across their chests. They're very tough, and their image is everything. And so that's really instrumental. The first thing that we do when those teenagers come to the Gentle Barn is we hug the cows. And they're immediately like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to dirty my shirt. I don't want to dirty my shoes. They're trying to kind of pose for the other kids and remain cool and tough. But getting like the leaders of those groups to hug the cows and put their faces on the cows, and their faces immediately melt from hard, tough, defensive, lonely teenagers to all of a sudden they melt into little kids, and they start smiling, and their eyes start shining, and they start talking softly and more vulnerably. And then they kind of bond with each other as they're opening up with the animals. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It's so interesting to see these kids that Ellie's talking about that are so tough and so guarded, that it's really just a coping mechanism. And once that's really, once it's revealed that that's just what it is, that they become these, sweet, innocent, really connected, kids that are closer to animals than adults are. And so it's really, we have this thing that happens from the time that we're born until the time that we die, where there seems like there's this, if you don't pay attention to it and pay attention to the energy around it, that you're pulling back more and more as you get older and older. And so peeling that away and stripping that away when they're still youthful is very powerful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, I see it in front of me, them putting their cheeks on the cow, and they feel that aliveness of the animal when maybe they have been struggling to feel alive for a long time.
I mean, you can see her behind us. This was our first cow, Buddha, just here. And she was I think what would you say? She did about 350,000 hugs.
Wow.
And, she is one of the main reasons why we've been so successful in it, and why Ellie discovered that, real, solid connection between cows and children and people 21 years ago.
Beautiful. So then I direct a question more towards you, Jay. How do you see, because this feels very much like you're an organization, but what you're speaking about is also a philosophy, right? You're reconnecting to animals and nature. What is the vision you see moving forward for the Gentle Barn?
It's a really powerful, interesting question, especially during a pandemic, right? Because we've had to pivot and rethink what that's going to look like. I think early on, back in, 15, 17 years ago, when social media wasn't really social media, and, the only way that you could really communicate was through a website and email, we wanted to open Gentle Barns across the country, all over the world, really, but across the country, one in each state was what we used to say. But now, as the internet has evolved and communication has evolved and the pandemic is in existence, that's all changed, where we have more of a digital presence. However, we still want to draw people into our sanctuaries, because we don't believe that there's any other way that's more powerful than actually physically hugging a cow, or and being around the animals. We do have 3 locations now. We have one here in California where we are now. We have one in Tennessee, and we have one in Missouri. And we, welcome people into those locations. The more we can do that, the more healing we can achieve. So I guess the answer to your question is, we want to get in front of as many people as possible, especially during a pandemic that's been created by eating animals, to show them that animals are just like us, and that they can save you, they can heal you, instead of thinking that it's the other way around.
I think we have dreams of opening another Gentle Barn location in New York and playing a part to free the carriage horses and find a new kind of environmentally friendly, kind of better technological way of having carriage rides and setting the horses free and letting them retire in homes across the country. So that's kind of our next step once the pandemic eases up. And then I think that we would like to take a look at maybe being worldwide, maybe having a Gentle Barn in other countries and playing a part in the issues that plague other countries as well.
That sounds, I would love to see more of these sanctuaries around, because I guess now you are then prioritize people who's been traumatized, people that have been to gangs and difficult circumstances. But my assumption is that most people would benefit from having these experiences of reconnecting to animals and nature on a regular basis. So my question is this something that anyone can do as well? Or is it mostly for problem solving, trauma healing at this point?
No, we're actually open to the public on Sundays. We host school field trips during the week in the mornings, and in the afternoons we host the at-risk inner city and special needs children. So it's very much open to the public because, like Jay said, we want to get in front of as many people as we possibly can. It's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the interview, but I kind of just want to reiterate. When we look back to indigenous cultures and natives, they spoke to the animals, they operated on intuition, they were connected to Mother Earth and the land, they ate whole foods, and they were connected to each other. And it was a beautiful, beautiful culture, one of which where they respected themselves, they respected each other, and they respected nature. And they left a very, very soft footprint. Through the Industrial Revolution and the technological age, we're now at a place where we're pouring concrete over Mother Earth. Like we said before, we're cutting down the trees, we're living in cities where it's very high tech, high noise, high activity. We don't make time to sit in the silence and the stillness. We don't make time to listen to our own intuition and the still small voice inside of us. We are not connected to other animals as our role models and teachers. And we don't seek to look to nature for our healing and for our growth and for our recovery. And so that is not only obliterating the planet and the environment, but it's also destroying ourselves with the violence, the drugs, the suicide rate. There's so many people that are lost, either on big, huge, obvious ways or just little teeny tiny ways. People going, God, this is not my life. This is not what I wanted as a child. And so I think the more we get back to nature, the more we connect to animals, the more we can connect back to ourselves and our own intuition, and we can love again, and we can heal, and we can recover, and we can find those moments of silence and stillness and connectedness that we all knew as natives and kind of have lost in this high society that we live now. The pendulum has kind of flung the other way, and it's time to kind of seek the wisdom, the connection, and the peace and stillness that resides in animals and nature to find ourselves. And so, yes, we're kind of disguised as an animal welfare agency where we're trying to save animals, and that's absolutely the truth. But really, in falling in love with animals and learning how to gently go vegan and learning how to sit in the stillness, we're really saving humanity, if you will, because the life of humanity depends on our connectedness that we have with Mother Earth and animals. We can't live on this planet alone. We have to connect. We have to love. We have to lift each other up in order for our own survival.
I just want to let that sink in, because what you're saying is so powerful. What your organization is really about is to guiding people back to nature and helping them understand that we are nature. And for someone listening to this, that might not be in the US, what can they do, some kind of action step to reconnect to nature?
What we all can do, no matter where we are in the world, is start realizing that nature and animals are always here for us to heal. If we're feeling stressed out, if we're feeling scared or lonely, all we have to do is hug a tree, or sit by a brook and listen to its music, or look into the eyes of an animal and see them through the lens of love instead of the lens of separation. To look at animals playing and their intelligence and their relationships and realize that we're all the same, we just look different. And through looking through the lens of love and spending more time in stillness and quiet, more time looking at a sunset or enjoying the bright blue sky, feeling the kiss of the wind on our face, those things will bring us back to ourselves.
Beautiful. Jay and Ellie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with Great.com today. I have no idea what I expected, but this was, it feels like I have been hugged for 20 minutes. So I appreciate your energy and your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Come visit the Gentle Barn whenever you can get close to one.
I really want to go back to California. And if I do, I will keep you guys in mind for sure. I want to hug a cow. So thank you so much. And for you listening, if you also enjoyed this episode, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that is showing the algorithms that this is important, so more people can hear this conversation and find their way back to nature. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. What is Great.com? That is the most common question that we get. And the shortest answer I can give you is that we are a company that is moving money from the online casino industry and donates it to charities that is helping the environment. The long answer, unfortunately I don't have time to tell you today. But if you're curious, definitely Google what is Great.com to learn more.